Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Tabansu, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty interesting show for you guys. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, as you guys know, there's been a lot of anticipation surrounding Skip Bayless and Undisputed. Why is that? Because as you guys know, ever since the departure of Shannon Sharpe from that show, a lot of us have been sitting here wondering what the show would look like when it ultimately returned. Now, for those of you who may be unaware, the show has been away for about 2 months now. And during this period, there have been a bunch of different reports that have come out. Some of the reports have been around, circulated, have been around some of the people that the show were looking to supplant Shannon Sharpe with. They were going to go to a more ensemble type of cast, something very similar to what Skip Bayless used to do on Cold Pizza, where it'd be him and then, you know, it'd be a bunch of different people arguing against him. So you had that news out there. There were other reports out there saying that some of the people within Fox were not impressed with the direction in which Skip Bayless was planning to take the show in. And then we also heard that Lil Wayne was going to be a member of the cast. Now, that was something that kind of threw me off because Lil Wayne is known as a musician, so I never really went to him for any of his perspective on sports, but that doesn't mean that Lil Wayne doesn't know anything about sports. So I was one of the people that was a bit skeptical about that. So what happened? As you guys know, some of you may be aware, we made our return yesterday after our break. So we already had things that we wanted to discuss, but one of the things I was looking forward to was I was curious to see what this new format, what this new show was going to look like on Undisputed. And I think a good amount of people were interested to see what this newly revamped Undisputed was going to look like. And as a matter of fact, it absolutely reflected in the views that they were able to garner yesterday. I'm just looking at YouTube. I don't know the ratings yesterday, but if I look at their first video, the welcome back video, that video generated about 50,000 views. The Skip Bayless, Richard Sherman reunite video, that generated about 400,000 views. Skip Bayless, Lil Wayne's new song, that generated 250,000 views. And then their largest segment, which was about a 30-minute segment that we're going to get to a little bit later here today, featuring Michael Irving, Richard Sherman, Keyshawn Johnson, that segment has generated 600,000 views. And of course, the Lil Wayne Skip Bayless segment has also generated about 100,000 views. So there's a lot of interest in this particular show here. So when I watched it, because I watched this segment, I was actually very interested to see how things were going to play out. Now, it's important that I say this. I'm not a football guy. I don't follow the NFL that much. And this particular segment that I saw, which was a 30-minute segment that you can catch on their YouTube page, was heavily centered on the NFL. So as someone that doesn't follow the NFL, it was hard to kind of understand whether or not these were good points that these guys were making, because I don't know the backstory. I don't follow any of the news pertaining to the NFL. But it seemed like there seemed to be a good flow, or at least that's what I thought. Now, some people may be saying, what do you mean that's what you thought? Well, after all of the shows were aired and after the show had concluded, apparently there's some articles out there circulating around the internet where people were essentially saying that Skip Bayless was relegated to being essentially a moderator on his own show. And there were numerous articles that actually covered this. But one of the articles we got this information from was Front Office Sports, one of my favorite sports websites to read from. And they had an article that essentially started off with the headline saying, Skip Bayless struggles in role as soft-spoken moderator on FS1. Who knew Skip Bayless had morphed into Jenny Taft? After a forced hiatus of nearly 2 months off, Bayless' revamped Undisputed Live returned to FS1's Monday morning. His exiled former co-star Shannon Sharpe must be laughing in his beer. In one of the strangest turns I've seen in sports TV, FS1 downplayed Bayless's role on his own show. Taft, the former moderator, was gone. Bayless could barely get a word in on his own show. Instead, the rebuilt Undisputed was geared around new stars Michael Irvin, Keyshawn Johnson, and Richard Sherman. Bayless, FS1's highest paid talent at $8 million a year, was reduced to the role of mumbling moderator. After a cringe-worthy introduction, he introduced debate topics, then looked on passively while his three co-stars bellowed over each other. Occasionally, Bayless interjected with some points of his own, but every time he was rounding into the hot take spewing TV troll we love to hate, one of his three co-stars would interrupt. For the most part, a neutered Bayless sat hunched in his chair, blowing air through pursed lips, nodding along with opinions of his new high-profile guest stars. At one point, he was reduced to meekly holding his hand up like a schoolboy asking his teacher's permission to talk. He pleaded, "Time out," and my turn. At other moments, to try to break into the conversation, they mostly ignored him. As NBA Central tweeted, Skip's new partners won't let him speak. Barstool Sports wrote, "Welcome to the new dynamic, Skip. Keyshawn Johnson, Richard Sherman, and Michael Irvin came on and said, 'This is our show now, pal.'" His three co-stars, all former Super Bowl champions, didn't exactly treat Bayless with the deference he was once used to from Sharp and former ESPN partner Stephen A. Smith. Johnson called him Skippy. Irvin virtually took over the show, standing up from his chair and addressing the audience like an old school preacher. Now, it's important that I state that that is just one opinion. Right now, it's a large source, but it's just an opinion. So what we would like to do is we'd like to play a segment where you can hear Skip Bayless kind of giving his own viewpoints, and you can hear his counterparts kind of itching to jump in to give their own take. So what I want to know from you guys as you listen to this is, do you feel that Skip was being dominated on his own show, or do you think that this is something that Skip Bayless himself actually wanted to orchestrate? So what we want to do is want to play it for you now, and then we're going to come back and continue on with the show. Take a listen to this segment here quickly.
Lance, even though he had played all of one season, albeit at North Dakota State, one season of starts, guess what he did in the one season? He threw 28 touchdown passes to 0 interceptions, and he ran for 1,100 yards. Again, Carson Wentz came out of there, so it's not Division I, it's a step below it, but still, you had 1 year of tape, and that's all because they played one game in the pandemic year. And they said, we bet on Trey. Well, if they bet on Trey, I felt pretty validated at that point. And what happened is rookie preseason, he busts the index finger on his throwing hand. What do you think is going to happen when you bust that? You're going to have a hard time in a really hard offense to run.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he struggles through his rookie year. And then what happened last year early on? He breaks his ankle and dislocates it. Well, it's a terrible injury. It's like Tony Pollard had. But the point is, it's so bad that he's barely played football in pro or college football. He's thrown in his life, in college and pro, he's thrown 400 total passes. Dak threw more passes last year than this kid has thrown in his whole life. So do I still have high hopes for him? Do I think he could ultimately be a little better, just a little better than Dak Prescott? We're talking 6'4", 225. He ran 4.55. He's a little faster. He's a little taller. He's got a little better arm, just a little better arm. And listen, I have done a lot of work on this kid. The intangibles are off the charts. He's a gym rat. He's a great kid. He's a tough kid. In North Dakota State, he's just running over people, which you can't do in your league.
Skip, you're playing yourself here in this situation. In this way, you played yourself here. Now, you gave Cal, and I do agree with you, so much props and credit for the offensive mind and the talent evaluator, all that he is. Okay, if you're giving him all that credit for seeing what he saw in Trey Lance, then you got to also play the other side. That same great mind has seen Trey Lance practice for the last couple years. Even though he loved his physical skill set, how talented he is shoulders down, there was a talent they couldn't measure shoulders up that they said, okay, here's an issue with him discerning this offense. They see him every day, and they said, oh, we're going to keep
hold on,
Brock Purdy
let me stop.
and Trey Lance. No, wait, let me finish.
No.
We're going to keep Brock Purdy and we're going to keep him done over him. They see him in practice every day. So obviously, the same great mind that assessed him must have said, "Oh, so maybe he can't get."
So let me back you up real quick, though, Playmaker. Let me back you up real quick. You say they saw him in practice every single day, so they saw what he is.
They saw it.
They saw him in practice last year. They saw him in practice the year before that. Guess what they decided to do? They decided to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo because they saw him in practice.
Come on now.
They decided to move on from Jimmy G because they saw him in practice. A guy that took him to the Super Bowl. And they said, you know what? We're going to move on from Jimmy G because we believe that Trey Lance is the guy. They saw Brock Purdy in practice last year, too. And they decided to still name Trey Lance the starter. They still made him a starter.
Before Brock Purdy got game.
Hold on.
Before Brock got game.
I understand that. Right. But Trey never really got game time. He kept getting hurt at the beginning of things.
So I disagree.
When Dak stepped in, he played right away.
I understand that.
When Trey stepped in, Trey did not play right away. He didn't play well right away. The times he did play,
he played well. He played well against Houston. His rookie year, he played well against the Houston Texans. He played a really good game.
So you heard the exchange. So here are my thoughts on this entire thing. Number one, I think it's too soon to draw conclusions. Number two, there's something that I noticed that I think that kind of left me unclear about how I feel about the entire thing, which was the segment when they brought up LeBron James. When they brought up LeBron James coming into this new season or something like that, because you know they got to talk about LeBron on that show. Essentially, you had Skip Bayless that had one particular position. And then you had three other gentlemen that were diametrically opposed to his views. And I'm not sure how entertaining that is for television, where essentially you have three people ganging up on one person. And I'm going to be very, very interested to see when the NBA season commences, what type of personalities they're going to bring on to talk about basketball. I'm going to be very, very interested to see that. I'm not sure I'm going to be excited to see Michael Irvin, Keyshawn Johnson, and Richard Sherman discuss basketball all year long. Now, we've heard reports that some of these guys are not going to be on there for the entire season. We know that, and we're going to have to see how that pans out. But I'm waiting to see who else he's going to have come on the show. Is it just going to be these guys for the rest of the year? Because if that's going to be the case, then I can't see myself being all that excited about watching this show, because I want to hear some NBA guys give some NBA perspectives on the NBA, not just football guys talk about the NBA. Now, I could be in the minority, with this particular view, but I think that a lot of people out there will concur with me that, hey, listen, if we're going to be talking basketball, can we get some basketball guys in here as well? So I guess we have to wait and see. Some people already coming to a conclusion. I think it's way too early to come to a conclusion about the show. We're going to need some time to kind of form our opinion. So what I want to know from you guys is simply this. Number one, what are your thoughts about the first episode of the show? And number two, what are your thoughts on those publications out there essentially saying that Skip Bayless was dominated on his own show? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comment section, and we catch you guys on the next show.